Gaining weight is something almost every woman can relate to. Whether it's 5 pounds or 50, putting on unexpected weight can be confusing and disheartening. What do you do about it? What's a healthy way to approach weight loss? In this episode, I sit down with functional hormone practitioner Jenn Pike to chat about how women can get to and maintain a healthy weight. Welcome to the Daily Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Meredith. I've led my family on a transformative health journey for over a decade, and now I help other families do the same. So this is a place where you can learn about healthy living and take the next step in your wellness journey.
Thank you so much for joining the Daily Wellness Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I know. I have been researching you and getting to know you a little bit, but I would love for everyone listening to have that same privilege. Could you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, so my name is Jenn Pike. I'm Canadian. I'm up in BC in Canada. And I am, it's crazy. I was just doing another interview and they were asking, how long have you been doing this for? And I was like, well, I'm going into my 28th year. I registered my first company when I was 17. And I knew from a very young age that I would be involved in fitness and health and wellness. I grew up in an environment where, that was just our home life. And I was very intrigued at how the human body could move and perform and health and vitality and all of that. And so, at 17, I knew I was going to be doing fitness on some level. It started off as doing group exercise and personal training. And then I went to college and ended up coming out as a medical exercise specialist. And I did post rehab for a while, but then I ended up working with a lot of athletes, mainly hockey players. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun, but they also had the community. They had all the best, they had the chiropractors, the massage, the nutritionist. And I was part-time working with women, a lot of whom were moms, and I wasn't a mom yet, at a gym where I lived at home. And I would go and train these athletes in this super conducive environment to be successful. That's what they were being paid for. And then I would go and I work with these women and moms part-time, and they were just trying to carve out like an hour a day for themselves. And I remember just thinking so many times, like, these are the athletes of everyday life, these women that I'm training. And I started to become so much more, fascinated and excited about working with them and less about the athletes. And so I left the athletic world and I started to really focus on diving into women's health and women's hormones. And I did that as a trainer and as a holistic nutritionist, and then went back to school when I became a mom myself and really started to dive into the functional side of health and understand, blood labs. So many of the women I were working with would come in and they would have the goals they wanted to work on, and then they would have the struggles that felt like were preventing the goals to happen. So everyone wanted to lose weight, to get stronger. At that time, it was like the word was tone. It wasn't build muscle. They're like, I just want to be toned and I want to lose some weight and I want to feel good. But then when they would talk to me about some of the symptoms they were struggling with was sleep or libido or their hair or, symptoms of thyroid issue and that, and they'd say, but I've gone for blood work and everything's fine. I'd always say, but do you feel fine? Because the way you're describing to me how you feel doesn't sound fine. So tell me more about how you feel. And that's what really sent me down this path of understanding more about functional medicine, like this meeting place of what, science was telling us, but more so what the human right in front of us was telling us. And then I began to do a lot as a functional medicine diagnostic nutritionist and started to, really delve into testing blood and urine and saliva and hair and stool. And in amongst all of that, I became a mother. I have 2 children who are now teens. My oldest is graduating high school this year, which I still am processing.
I feel you. I have a junior.
Oh my goodness. And so along the way, in the beginning, I was chasing after a paycheck, teaching at multiple facilities. I was a personal training director for Sports Clubs of Canada and Bally's. And, I loved it when I was in it. But when I had my children, I was like, this is insane. I can't maintain this schedule. And then I thought it would be easier if I just opened my own business. So I opened a brick and mortar. I called it Simplicity because that's what I was craving. And it was the hardest and the best thing I ever did. And about 5.5 years in, I decided to sell it because what I realized was my customers and my clients were getting the best of me and my family was getting the worst of me, just because of how much I was putting forward into that community. And I achieved what I had set out to do, and the impact I wanted to create and the life I wanted to live no longer felt aligned with working those kind of hours and having a physical space. So I transitioned everything online in 2016. It's like I had a little globe. I knew it was coming apparently, and the online thing was going to be it. And yeah, so here we are all these years later. I founded the Hormone Project, which is my signature program that women who want to learn what they always should have known about their bodies come into. And this year, like, we are focusing so heavily in the age group of 35 to 55, perimenopause and menopause, because it is what so many women have needed to be prepared for and understand about their body. There's so many changes that happen in this journey. It's like 10 to 12 years long. And then I also have created the academy within that. So health practitioners who went to school and know a lot about the thing they know about, but weren't taught about, hormone optimization and understanding the physiological changes, they come through the program as well. And yeah, there's a couple different things I do. Anything with the human health and body, we've really, we've built a very multifaceted company of support for women.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what the gist I got from all of your resources. Very
Yeah,
comprehensive. Yeah. For
yeah,
women,
yeah,
especially. A
yeah.
couple things I loved that you said in that moms are the athletes of the real world.
Honestly.
Amen. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I just feel like, I was, like I said, I mainly worked with hockey players, and you'd have like, your 2D and your center and your wingers and your goalie. And I was like, man, these women are that for everything. They
Yeah.
are the whole line.
Right. They're playing every
Yeah.
position.
They're
Yeah.
playing every position. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Another thing I love that you said is that you're teaching women things that they should have known about their bodies all along.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been so true. And, something that I have just had to come to realize for myself, as I've gotten older, but then have tried to be really intentional with my daughters. What do I wish that someone had taught me? What should someone have taught me
Yeah.
when I was younger and growing up? So those are really awesome things that you pointed out. And I kind of asked you to come on here. You already touched on this a little bit, just to talk about weight loss, the issue of weight loss in general. I know it's like this classic issue that women of the ages have always obsessed over in some way. And I think there are also some really important, like, modern day issues with weight loss, and
Mm.
that whole conversation that we could chat about that would be really helpful and valuable for women. So just kind of put everybody on the same page. I know that sometimes talking about weight loss can be a little bit of a touchy issue, just because of, like, thinking of body positivity and things like that. And I don't want to stomp on positivity at all, but I also don't want to ignore the very real health issues that come with being overweight and obesity.
Mhm.
And so we're just going to throw it out there today and have this conversation about, what does healthy weight and healthy weight loss look like? So I just looking very very briefly at the CDC and the NIH and things like that. I mean, as of 2020, about 42% of Americans, North Americans, have obesity. I
Mhm.
think up to 20% of children have obesity, and I wouldn't be surprised if those are very low percentages.
Yeah, I think it's higher, and and it's higher because it's nuanced. So if we're looking specifically at obesity, that's one marker.
Right.
But what we're really talking about is metabolic health.
Hmm.
Our metabolic health as North American. So you're American, I'm Canadian.
Hmm.
We're not all that different in terms
Right.
of, geographically what the food that we're having access to and the
Right.
different type of kind of metrics that are laid out from an education standpoint, a physical activity, to what's being brought in the home and the household. And the stats are definitely higher than that when it comes to metabolic health issues. So there's obesity, there's diabetes, there's, insulin resistant prior to diabetes. There
Hmm.
are, issues with high cholesterol and poor lipid profiles.
Right.
There are so many different issues that are going on. And, you and I are of a time where when I was growing up, it was more rare to see somebody that was struggling in that way than it was to see somebody who was living, in a healthy state, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And nowadays, it kind of feels a little bit rare in some cases. And then when people see someone who's living a life of vitality and vibrancy, they're like, what are your secrets?
Right. Or they're labeled as extreme, because they're fit and healthy, and that's
Yes.
so not the
Yeah, they're
norm
not,
right
that's
now.
not normal. And
Right.
that's one of the things that's really unfortunate is that we've normalized dis-ease
Hmm.
and being unhealthy, and we've made it weird
Hmm.
to choose health and to be healthy when that is actually our body's natural state.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought your experience into this, because that was one of my questions, is kind of compared to those statistics, what has your experience been working with women? What percentage would you say struggle with their weight?
So, I mean, because I run a women's clinic that is specific for health and hormones, majority, I'd say probably 80 to 85% of the
Hmm.
women coming in are struggling with their weight. And it may not be massive amounts of
Hmm.
weight, but it's weight where they will say, I literally do not know where this came from. I didn't change anything and I am thicker in the waist. I've got 15 extra pounds on me. Or, I
Yep.
just couldn't shake it after having my last child or after my first child. It's a more inflammatory type of weight that we see with the women
Hmm.
who come in because the weight is oftentimes a symptom of something else. So, yes, it could be a symptom of lifestyle, but more often now, I don't see where people are just like, I'm overweight because I don't eat healthy and that's the only thing I
Hmm.
have going on. There's oftentimes a lot of hormonal changes that are happening. Could be postpartum, perimenopause,
Yep.
menopause and post, thyroid issues, PCOS,
Hmm.
insulin resistance I talked about. Um, and so, that's a lot of what we are dealing with and what we are supporting. And, so many of the women that come into our practice, they are the woman that I described in the beginning who said, I've gone to the doctor and I'm told I'm fine. I'm told
Hmm.
my blood labs are fine. I'm told everything's fine. And she's feeling very dismissed and very frustrated because her life is unfolding in a way that feels anything but fine. And we can manage a lot. You can manage a headache every now and again and some brain fog and, low energy and a little bit of anxiety and some PMS. But when that starts to become the way that you describe yourself
Hmm.
and your life becomes defined by those things, this is no longer just about impacting your physical health. This is impacting how you show up in everything, your relationship, your parenting, your career, your community.
Yeah.
We are an extension of what is going on inside. And I think that what we've seen, this isn't new for women to struggle with this, but in the last few years, things change dramatically for many different reasons for a lot of people. And I think now we're seeing this tipping point
Mhm.
where the pot is a boiling and like shit's about to hit the fan. And
Yep.
women are really, they're feeling that pressure. And so now we have more women who are desiring to not feel this way. So there's more questions coming out. There's also more confusion than ever before
Hmm.
because we are so oversaturated with information.
Right.
Like the pendulum has swung
Hmm.
where 10 years ago, if you and I were having this conversation, we would not have been having it online like this. It would have been in person. We would have had to really seek each other out.
Hmm.
You're in the US, I'm in Canada. We probably wouldn't even have found one another.
Yeah.
And that actually was easier in some respect because you didn't have as much to pick and choose from. So you could get some education from a book or from a workshop you attended or a
Yep.
program, and you could dial in and just focus on that. But nowadays, oh my gosh, it is you're peppered on Instagram, you're peppered in the pods, the books, the magazines, everywhere. And so people are downright confused.
Yeah, I agree. So let's start to bring some clarification to that. I mean, I totally agree with you that most of the women who are struggling with their weight, no matter how much weight that is, are probably going to be having some kind of hormone related issue
Yeah.
in their lives.
Yeah.
And so, can you kind of explain what that connection is? Like, what is the connection between your hormones and your weight?
So oftentimes we'll hear like, well, your metabolism slows as you are aging. And that's actually not true. We have a lot of data to show that, literally data and also human
Mhm.
data, which is that it's not that your metabolic system is slowing, it's that your metabolism is changing as your hormones change. So when you are having this initial, onset of hormones being a little hyper in the beginning of some perimenopausal changes, which for women are happening anywhere from their, mid to late 30s into their early 40s is the onset of those things where you're starting to feel it happen. And that could be things like, your cycle length is changing, the quality of your bleed is changing, your energy and your mood and your physical body feels different at ovulation or going into your period than it used to. Sleep is off, body composition is changing. Those are oftentimes some of the biggest things that women will start to feel. Well, when you have your hormones fluctuating, we think so much just about our reproductive sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And those are three important hormones, but when they're in flux, so too are our insulin and our cortisol and our hunger hormone ghrelin and our satiation hormone leptin. And our body is no longer doing as good a job as what it used to at being able to regulate those hormones, produce, uptake, manage things like our blood sugar. And, insulin is, to be honest with you, when we look kind of down the pipeline of all the women we've, been supporting, which is thousands and thousands of women at this point in our clinic and in our programs, working on supporting healthy digestion and healthy blood sugar management, glucose and insulin management are the two most important things to start women with. The hormones are responding to situations happening in the gut and with our blood sugar and to our life. And the life piece is hard because we can't just go shake a stick at life and be like, seriously, like settle down.
Yeah, right.
Can you just stop? Because you're messing things up inside. It's oftentimes going to be kind of that final piece that women will start to put into place. But if we can get her digestion on point, decrease the gas and the bloating and the burping and the reflux and get her pooping regularly, pounds are going to start to drop off just from reducing that stagnant energy and that inflammation. Her sleep will be better. She won't have the brain fog. The cravings will dissipate. And so working on the gut first. And part of that is teaching people how to actually balance their blood sugar, which is making sure that the meals you are eating are protein forward, have a good quality source of carbohydrate where your fiber is coming with that, and a healthy fat. Like that's a balanced plate meal. Where's my protein? Where's my carb and fiber? And where's my fat? If you can start to ask yourself, those three questions and see that visibly in what you're about to consume and eat, every 4 to 6 hours, depending on your lifestyle, you are already off to such a more stable point than the person who is trying to constantly shrink their eating window, shrink the amount of calories that they're eating, stop eating carbohydrates. Being in this industry as long as I have, I've always been referred to as like the purple duck in a yellow duck world. So if all the ducks are going this way, I'm just like standing over here, not trying purposely to be a rebel or be different, but I'm always like, but why? So I've sat in this industry for 28 years and I have watched when Atkins was the big thing, and then the zone diet and the Mediterranean diet. And then when everybody was supposed to be vegan and vegetarian, and then when paleo was the route to go, and then when everyone was supposed to be keto, and then no, not keto, everyone's supposed to fast, and then now everyone's supposed to be a carnivore. And I've sat here, and you got to remember, like, I'm doing this intellectually, but also as a business owner, and I've never risen to the occasion to adopt any of those, what was the hot topic for that period of time, and now create a program, a plan, or a business out of it. Because I've been doing this for so long and the way that I was trained, at the end of the day, the core tenets for what our body requires are the same. And when we try to shapeshift into these tiny boxes, whatever the deficit is of that program, whether the carbs are the deficit, total calories are the deficit, our eating window shrinks and we're over fasting, it will work for a period of time until it doesn't. And in a woman's body, it's very different than in a man's body. A man, he has a 24-hour circadian rhythm and endocrine rhythm. He can, like his Groundhog Day over there. They can do the same thing all the time and have great results and be actually quite happy with it. We have a 24-hour circadian rhythm, but we have an infradian rhythm. We go through many different phases and hormonal shifts and changes over the course of an entire month. And so we can start something for a period of time and have great results.
Mm.
And then we're like, oh, what I was doing is now no longer working. And as a woman, what we'll do is we just try and tighten the reins. So if it stopped working, I'm just going to eat a little less. I'm going to work out a little bit more, or I'm going to do a little bit more of this. And then we may see some results from that. But again, at some point, your body is going to be like, this is not what I am trying to explain to you.
So do you think that disconnection that women have with their cycles also is a contributor to weight struggle?
I do. And I think this comes back to, again, teaching women what we always should have known about our bodies, which is we are not the same day to day. You know, when we are a cycling woman that still has a period, we are going to go through 4 very distinct phases every single month. And these phases, you know, so many of us are taught when we learn about it that it really is just leading up to the point of pregnancy. And then if you don't get pregnant, everything dials down, you get a period, tickety boo, you move on to the next month. It's so much more beautiful and complicated than that. So our whole body is hardwired as women to have this, you know, orchestra where we are pulling hormones up. Like after our period is done, we start to increase our estrogen and testosterone. This is beautiful. It's leading us into ripening the follicles on our ovaries. We're going to release an egg. We're going to ovulate. That's kind of the main event. And then if we have not conceived a child, then our body is going to start the natural decline of those hormones. Progesterone is going to join the party now and have its, you know, Beyonce moment. And this is what's going to make us feel calm and good and serene. Both these hormones are going to now go into their plummet, and now we're going to get a bleed. And this is the cycle. While this is happening on the surface, behind the scenes, our hunger cues change. In the first half of our cycle, we are much more insulin sensitive, which means we do a much better job with complex carbohydrates, slightly higher amount of carbs. If we were going to fast, that's the period of time where your body is more primed for it. But trying to apply those things where you do very low carbs and you're fasting in the second half of your cycle leading into your period, you're probably not going to feel fantastic. And that is going to impact things. So, you know, I think it's just where we can make it less complicated for women is teach humans what you want to be looking for on that plate. And, you know, protein gets talked about all the time. It is definitely the most highlighted macronutrient of the last 2 years right now. And for good reason. It's always been important. But I think the reason we're seeing so much more talk about it right now is that the majority of us who have been in the health space for a long time, we are all in the perimenopausal window right now. We're all in it. And we're realizing that if we don't have enough protein,
that it is very difficult to build muscle and preserve muscle. And if we don't have enough muscle on our body, that is when we end up more prone to having problems with our blood sugar, our bone health, our breast health, our brain health. You know, that muscle is playing a role of helping to sponge and sop up the insulin, but it is also releasing myokines that are supporting estrogen production and supporting our usage of cortisol. And so, you know, when you are a woman in your 20s, the way you're living in your 20s is really setting you up for what's going to show up and happen in your late 30s and in your 40s. And I don't know about you, but in my 20s, no one was really teaching me that. I was just like, where's the next party? Eat whatever I want. Exactly. And your body would be fine. You get to a certain age. For most women, it's typically between like 35 and 38, where they're like, I had a fun weekend. I did the thing. And, you know, 2 weeks later, I'm still holding on to the 5 pounds that I put on that I just thought was water retention. Or the brain fog hasn't fully cleared. Or my joints are sore. My sleep is crappy. You know, what is going on? And this is this hormonal decline that is happening behind the scenes because our ovaries are on that decline starting in our early 30s. And by our mid 30s, even if I had a woman who reached out today, she said, I'm 47. I just downloaded your perimenopause masterclass. I don't think I'm in it though, because I don't have any symptoms. She's 47 years old. She's 100% in perimenopause. But what we've been taught as being symptoms associated with anything that is pause, like menopause, would be if I don't have vaginal dryness, hot flashes, insomnia, racing heart, and I still have a period, I don't have any symptoms. And that's simply not true. Yeah, very good. Yeah. So, I mean, you're dropping so many truth bombs here. What are the kind of core things that you really wish everyone knew about weight loss? As you know, if someone's going out thinking, I've got to do something about this weight, like what are some of the core truths that you would really just want to download to them?
The most important metric is your consistency.
Yeah.
So you could, and this is what, we've seen over the years, is you could take any one of these approaches we talked about, and you could probably get results from it if you're diligent and you are consistent. And so if you're sitting here and you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself, there's weight, and here's the other distinction as well. Is it weight you want to lose, or is it body fat that you want to lose? Because when we're talking about body composition, if you are purely focused on the number on the scale and you're just really wanting to drop pounds, you're most likely going to be losing muscle with that weight. And then now when we talk about metabolism and metabolic function, we're not as metabolically healthy as if we were to focus on shifting our body composition, meaning building more lean muscle, decreasing body fat. And you'll see this by measurements, like using a tape measure and taking measurements. You'll see this if you do something like an in-body scan or a DEXA scan. But if all we stand on is just a regular, Walmart bathroom scale, it's not going to give us the metrics. And our brain is going to tell us, even if you're feeling better, your gut is on point, you're pooping, you're like, I don't have the cravings anymore. You're feeling stronger. You can even see like a little bicep when you flex your arm. The moment you step on that scale, if that number doesn't meet the number you're holding in your mind as being successful, you will not allow yourself to realize that you're improving your health because the scale is not matching that number.
Yeah, that could be another like core truth right there. Just the fact that the number on the scale is not the sole determining factor of your health.
And the reality is, as women, like, we are not going to be the same weight coming into our mid to late 30s and our 40s and 50s as we were in our 20s and our early 30s. And that is also by design. It is actually to protect us. When our ovaries stop producing the rich amount of estradiol of E2, we need some of that E1, the estrone, within the fat cells to be happening. Like, we still need fat. We need that in order to be able to continue to produce other hormones and for other protection in our body. It's when we don't have that balance, meaning we don't want to be putting down some padding without putting down that hard muscle. So everything is like in that equilibrium. So I think that, number one, if you're listening, ask yourself, first of all, like, is your digestion an area where you need to focus on? Because as I said, if you can start to eliminate some of the foods that really irritate you, not the one that the internet has told you to stop eating, but when you have it, you're like, oh, like my stomach does not feel good. I've got to run to the bathroom. I break out the next day. I'm so congested. I have to clear my throat when I eat that. I get a headache after I have it, but it tastes so good. That's your body letting you know, like, excuse me, I know that tasted fabulous. However, it is not making us feel good. And if we continue to do that over and over again, there's going to be a cost you have to pay for that. So it's like weighing out the cost and the benefit, starting to bring in some of the healthier food, chewing your food, having a hydrated body, making sure that you're making time to have a good quality bowel movement, using something like a squatty potty. Those are simple things that we can do. Most of those are free. And I guarantee you, like I said in the beginning, that woman whose digestion gets on point, she is going to feel 1,000,000 times better. Her energy is going to feel better. The whites of her eyes are going to be more clear. She is going to be so much more lit up in her brain. And so that is step one. You add that in with that balanced blood sugar, which, the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of people doing things like wearing continuous glucose monitors as well. And I am a fan of that for a couple of reasons. And it's not also for everyone. For the person who is out of touch with their body, where they're like, I don't know, like, you're talking about all these things and I just get up, I eat some things, I go to work, I take care of my family, I come home, I eat some more things, and I try to go to bed. And they're not really in touch with their body. Wearing a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM, which has a 2-week sensor, and it has an app on your phone, and you scan it and you can see, like, what is your blood sugar when you wake up? We work with a lot of women who have sleep issues. They have either typically, when they're not sleeping, they've either plummeted throughout the night. Blood sugar is like at a low point. Your body's going to pick that up as a stressor and wake you up and be like, excuse me, liver, we don't have enough available glucose in the blood. We're going to need to go and pull some of that glycogen out of the liver and the muscles so that we can keep this human alive and they don't go into a coma. You don't know that that's the message that happens. All you know is, I cannot sleep. I am up, my brain is going, I think I have to pee, I lie back down, I toss and turn. So a CGM, that's one thing it can tell us is what's happening in the night. The other thing is it actually can show us how you respond to what you're eating. So if you ask the average person, they'll say, no, like I eat pretty good. And then if you start to scan after your meals and you see these huge spikes in your blood sugar and then a crash and a burn. And that crash and burn is also when you say to yourself, I need another coffee. I need a sweet tea. I need, something like I need a little pick me up. I ate the salad and the chicken, but now I want chocolate. This can help you to understand, is what you just ate substantial enough for your blood sugar to be even? Because when blood sugar is balanced, we don't have those satiation issues, right? We don't have those cravings. So I really do like it as like a little bit of an experiment, right? We can understand when our kids do like a science project and this is how they gather data in research. This is how we do it as a human.
Yeah, and I think the more you understand about your body, the better. Like that can never be bad. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Why do you think so many women are struggling? Like you said, 80% of the women that you are seeing, and I know that, women are reaching out to you specifically for this issue. Why so many?
I think there's a few factors. I think that we have a lot on our plates. And I think that is one of the big ones, especially, even if you don't have children, you're parenting and caring for something or someone, right? Whether it is a partner, a pet, your home, your job, like there's just a lot of pressure that gets put on us as women. And I think that, when unresolved and unacknowledged, and if you don't feel like it is okay to talk about that, we'll go and numb it down with things like alcohol and food that taste real good. And,
more things to do.
More things to do, busy yourself up, right? It's a distraction and it's dopamine. And that is the thing is like, we're looking for this like drug that is making us feel good in the moment, which food makes us feel good. Alcohol makes us feel good. Shopping makes us feel good. Being a helper, helping more people and, saying yes makes people, feel good, makes us feel good. So I think that's big. And all of that is wreaking havoc on our nervous system. And our nervous system and our adrenals are what respond to that. And so if we have more cortisol being dumped out into our blood than what's needed, that cortisol secretion is communicating to the pancreas, I also need you to get in here with some insulin. And it's this real roller coaster. I think the other thing is most women that I talk to are not getting enough appropriate rest. It's really difficult to have a healthy body weight if you're constantly in, wear down, tear down mode, and there's not enough time for proper recovery and getting that sleep. And we're looking for a quick fix. So we're looking for that quick diet and plan. With exercise, this can play a role in it, either not doing anything or doing way too much. And so trying to really find that, that equilibrium where you're moving your body, you're getting the steps in, you're doing some strength training, but you're not crushing yourself in the process. And I think the root of it, all of it, is that because with a lot of the programs that are out there or, the support mechanisms right now, there's just not education coming with it. We're being told what to do, but not why.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah. I think that this episode is going to be a great starting point for a lot of women that don't understand the why behind what's going on with their bodies.
Oh my gosh, it's so like that is my whole mission in the world and everything that we do is I'm not here to tell you, follow this meal plan, eat exactly this, do exactly that. You need to get curious in your own body, but you need to understand why this even matters, right? So it's like we have to understand that for us as women, we are going to go through the hormonal flux and changes. There's nothing we can do to stop those phases from happening, but there's a lot we can do to feel a whole lot better in them. And we're going to live more than a third of our life in a postmenopausal state. So what we do for our health right now in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, that is really setting the stage for us into our 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond.
Yeah.
And I think, we didn't talk about this, but as I'm, mentioning this now, I think one of the other reasons we can struggle a lot with our weight is honestly like lack of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we have lost joy and passion and excitement and that, sometimes it's just hearing a conversation like this and sitting back and being like, okay, need to have a little chat with myself. And then I need to like look at my priorities and maybe my calendar and really ask myself, if I say that feeling like this is important, do I actually see that reflected in my lifestyle or in my habits, in my patterns? And it's really hard for women. It's really difficult because we look at everything we do in our life and in a day and we go, but that's important and that's important. And well, if I don't do that, then you don't understand. Like there's no one else to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's also important to be realistic with ourselves, but also we have to stop using the life that we're in right now as the reason why we can't feel the way that we want to feel, because you don't have to go do everything we just talked about. It's just one thing. Like, can you start to drink more water today? 1 glass more today than yesterday? That is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? That's great. And this really reminds me of a quote that I heard of yours that says, "True well-being is a journey to be enjoyed, not a struggle to be forced." I think there's a lot of women listening that want to believe that,
yeah,
but are struggling with the enjoyment part. And that just ties in beautifully with what you just explained to us.
Yeah. It's very hard nowadays. Like I feel that I'm online and you see what you're supposed to look like and, don't have wrinkles, don't be gray, don't have this, I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, here's all my gray, here's all my wrinkles. Like, I just refuse to subscribe to that for so many reasons. The way that we look should not define who we are as women. Mm-hmm. And I think if more of us could really step forward, and it's scary, but step forward with that audacity and the courage, like you can go borrow that courage from another woman. And I'm raising a 17-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. And I want them to understand what aging really means and represents, and not this filtered version of who we are. And I think that is the other thing that's so hard for us as women, is we feel like we have to show up in a filtered, edited, watered down version of who we are.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Speaking of your 17-year-old daughter, like, what kind of conversation would you have with her around the body positivity movement?
So we've had this conversation, in that you never want to like judge where anyone is at and what's going. Listen, we don't know anybody's story, but at the same time, there is a difference between embodying our bodies and like loving ourselves at whatever phase or size, and that, and also understanding that there are some things that are simply not healthy for our body. So it's not a visual, you have to go look a certain way. You want to function a certain way. And if our body is holding on to excess weight, if we're holding on to a lot of excess weight, what this means is we're holding on to inflammation. Mm-hmm. And this increases all comorbidities. This increases our risk for heart disease, which is the leading cause of death in women. This increases our risk of various forms of cancer. It increases our risk of diabetes. It increases our risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. It increases our risk of autoimmune issues, because if the body is at a calibration in terms of being at a healthy weight and finding that balance point, there are probably some inflammatory things going on that are going to start to impact gut health, therefore immune health. And that is the birthplace of an autoimmune illness. So this has absolutely nothing to do with how another human being looks. This has to do with their health at the core.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree. That's totally beautiful. And I think your daughter is very blessed to have you as a mom guiding her through that. And, I think as women, we all wish that we could have those kinds of relationship with our daughters, first of all, to be able to, guide them in that way, and that they would trust us and see us model that in such a way that they would want to follow in our footsteps. So yeah. I just think you're doing a beautiful job.
Well, thank you. And it's, it definitely isn't easy, but we also we use words like strong in our house. So, it's like my husband and I, our kids have grown up with us working out all the time, and we're not in the mirror pinching ourselves and saying, well, I wish this could be smaller than that. It is like, I want to be strong. Like they're watching their parents, trying to do pull-ups and like, get stronger at our push-ups and like deadlift more and do those kind of things. And it is, again, they're teens, they have jobs, they go out and they buy the things and eat all of that. But in our home, it's also, this is what we create and this is what we have. And this is why what matters to us is health. And, My husband's mother has been battling Alzheimer's for a long time now and has been in a home for the last few years. And she's only 69 years old. She is quite young. And they've grown up witnessing that. My dad had cancer 12 years ago. They have, seen that. My sister-in-law has an autoimmune illness. So they are aware, and we talk very openly and honestly, about stuff, and they see other people struggle. And so in our house, it's not about, we're trying to do this so we can weigh a certain amount and look a certain way. It's like, we're trying to do this because we only get one body.
Yeah.
I always give this example that, if you and I want to go change the clothes that we have on right now, no problem. We go into a closet, we have a whole bunch to pick from. If we are repeatedly waking up in a body that doesn't feel good, we can't go zip out of this and go slide into another one. This is what we get. This is what we get. And so, I understand it can feel like so much work, but it is a privilege to get to look after the bodies that we have been gifted. But again, we need better education on what taking care of ourselves actually means. Mm-hmm. And as I said in the beginning, there's a lot of information that's out there, but I think we need to see better education, because information is just that. You can have a lot of info in your brain. You can be consuming a lot, but if you don't understand why, it's going to feel hard.
Yeah. I think one important question to ask to kind of round out this conversation is where someone would start. So if, after listening to this, I'm imagining a lot of women listening to this have already tried to go down this road and are maybe feeling frustrated and discouraged and confused. And, they're wanting to take care of themselves, and maybe they've tried different things, or maybe they are just starting and don't know where to start. So what would you recommend as kind of a starting place or first steps for them?
Okay, so I'll talk about this in two different ways. The first for the woman who's like, I don't really have a big budget for this. What can I do that is like free and accessible? And then the individual who may have a slightly bigger budget. Okay, so for the individual who's trying to figure this out on their own, I would come back to what I said, which is, as you've been taking in information or reading books and hearing, like, what makes the most sense for you? So if you don't already exercise and move your body, can you start to walk? Because that is free. Can you walk? Can you go on YouTube and download free workout videos? I have workout videos that are free on YouTube. And can you start to do strength training with your own body weight? Some squats, some lunges. You can do things assisted on a chair or at the wall and get your body moving. That is not only going to help your body composition goals and your fat loss goals, it's going to make you feel good, right? It is going to make you feel good and empowered. The other thing is, with your food, being very present and aware of what you're actually choosing and eating that food, like not fearing food, but starting to nourish yourself. So many women that we work with in our programs, we actually have to do a reverse diet with them, which means we have to actually start to slowly bring their calories and their macronutrients up because they've been restricting for so long and they're terrified. So we do it slowly. The individual on the other side who has a slightly healthier budget, I would really recommend that you work with someone and that you have something that is designed for you that is very specific to you sharing. This is what's going on. These are my goals. This is what I want to focus on. And then you adhere to that. Now, and that is like from a fitness perspective. If it's health things that are going on, in terms of that budget, you want to work with someone who's going to do a really solid client intake, like a timeline history, because how we feel today is not a result of just yesterday. It is like all the years and our lived experiences that have brought us to this moment. So those would be my two things. Start with what you can that is free, because there's so much of it, and find a partner, find a buddy. Usually this partner does not live in your house.
Yeah, that might be best.
Yeah, they may be the person that's cracking open the bag of chips, and you're going to be like, I seriously want to like kick you in the chest for doing that because I'm trying so hard over here. You'll find a neighbor. The person who already walks the neighborhood, walk out onto your driveway and be like, would you like a walking partner? Like, go and link up and, create the accountability that you wish you had. And that is like, you can do that without paying a trainer. But on the other side, if you can afford the trainer, you can go to group exercise classes. That's going to help to build in accountability. So part of this is like, get to know yourself. If I were to ask you today, what do you need to be successful? What is your answer? And start to lean into that.
Yeah. Great advice. Any other topics or health, like weight loss related issues that you feel like we haven't covered that you'd be really beneficial? Because I have 3 fun questions that I want to end with, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything on your heart.
Well, I think that one thing we didn't talk about is if there is truly something that is going on in terms of illness, infection, medication can also impact, right? So if there are gut issues that are going on, if anyone is on medication, this could be, birth control, it could be an IUD, it could be thyroid medication, it could be antidepressant, anti-anxiety, steroids, you name it. Medication can also definitely impact our body weight.
Yep.
For sure. So I think that's important to bring up.
Yeah, very true. And for those people, do you have separate recommendations or, they can still kind of start to do some of these things that you're mentioning?
Oh, they can do all the things that we're talking about, but each one of those types of medication I talked about is going to impact somebody's weight differently. Like someone who's on hormonal birth control is going to be impacted differently than someone who's on an SSRI for depression or anxiety. So you can go back and talk to your primary care provider. Most of the time, they're not going to be where you're going to find the solution for how you can support yourself alongside that. But doing a lot of the things we talked about, like eating the whole foods, getting your body moving, honoring your sleep. And it is a journey. We've been taught this takes 30 days or like 2 months. No, it doesn't. Give yourself months and years. Months, years. Like commit to this. This is your body, like I said, for life. So we're not just trying to be healthy for a moment. We're trying to be healthy for a lifetime.
Yeah, that beautiful. Great point. My fun questions to end with is, what is your favorite morning drink?
Matcha. Hands down, I love my morning matcha.
How do you make it?
I have a great company here in town and I get a ceremonial grade matcha. I do like a half a teaspoon of that. I do a scoop of collagen and I do a little bit of like a nut milk, so either Brazil nut or coconut or almond milk, and I just froth that together and then I do hot water and that's it.
It sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Sounds so good. A second question is, what is your favorite way to de-stress?
Being outside in nature, like walking for sure. Yeah, walking, or in the summer months here in Canada, like curling up with a great book and sitting outside. That's what I love to do.
What do you do in the winter? You can't get out.
It's not too long the winter here now that I live in BC and I don't live in Ontario anymore. You know what? We still get outside and walk every single day. Sometimes we ski. I'm not as big of a skier as my husband and my son, but life doesn't change all that much in the winter. We're still outside every day. We have a dog, which makes it really easy. And it's actually the winter is really beautiful.
So you just get your winter layers on and go outside.
Get your winter layers on. You just get out there. And then before you know it, you're super hot and you've layered up too much.
That happens to me. We went sledding the other day when we did get enough snow barely to go sledding. And we were all so hot on the way there. And then we got there, we got active, and we got even hotter. We were like, what are we thinking?
Too funny.
Yeah. Third question, who would you love to see as a guest on the Daily Wellness Podcast?
Oh, I feel like Dr. Mary Claire Harbour would be a great guest for you to have on the show, talking a lot about, how to advocate for yourself in perimenopause and menopause when it comes to things like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, pelvic floor physiotherapy, and those types of things. I think that is must-have information for women. She's based out of the US and she is excellent at communicating.
Okay, awesome. I'll check her out. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate what you're doing, how you're helping women. Just keep at it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on here.
Thanks for listening to today's episode on the Daily Wellness Podcast. We hope that you found it helpful for your own wellness journey. And if so, we'd love for you to leave a review. Then come back and listen for review shoutouts on upcoming episodes. For more information, check out the show notes and connect with us on our website, dailywellnesscommunity.com.